Okay, let's dive right in. Today we're talking about a really interesting framework called MARG. Now, that stands for Meta, Alternate Reality Game, but wait, don't let that name scare you off. Honestly, at its heart, MARG is something much simpler and I think a lot more powerful. It's basically a map for understanding your own mind and how you actually grow. But let's start with a question that I think pretty much all of us have felt at some point. You read the books, you listen to the podcasts, you're gathering all this great information, but you still feel kind of stuck. Why is it that just learning more stuff doesn't always lead to real tangible growth? Well, that's the exact problem MARG is designed to shine a light on. And right off the bat, let's be super clear about what MARG is not. This is not another personality test like the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram that's going to stick a label on you and put you in a nice, neat little box. No. The whole point here is that it's a dynamic map. It's not about measuring who you are as a fixed thing. It's all about tracking what you can currently do, and more importantly, how that capability changes over time. So let's dig into that first big idea. Why exactly does our growth get stuck in the first place? Well, the central argument here is that the problem isn't a lack of information. I mean, come on, we're all swimming in information, right? The real issue is a lack of integration. It's about our ability to actually connect the different parts of ourselves, our knowledge, our habits, our experiences, into something that works together. That's where the real development happens. Okay, so if the problem is a lack of integration, how do we make that process visible? How can we actually see what's going on? Well, this brings us to the core of the whole framework, the map of the mind itself. The whole map is built around a super simple visual, an inverted triangle. And each of the three edges of this triangle represents a core domain of your capabilities. We're talking about knowledge, character, and skills. So let's break these down. First up, you've got the K edge for knowledge. Now, this isn't just one thing. Think of it like a spectrum. On one end, you have your conceptual understanding, all the theories you know, all the books you've read. And on the other end, you have your factual, direct experience, the stuff you've actually done, the things you've lived through. Next, we have this C edge for character. And again, it's a spectrum. On one side, you have your automatic behavioral patterns, the things you do on autopilot, your habits. And on the other side, you've got your conscious, analytical reflection, your ability to actually step back and think, wait, why do I do that? And finally, there's the S edge for skills. This maps the relationship between what you can do reliably and practically, like, say, playing a piece of music exactly as it's written, and your ability to adapt creatively, like improvising a whole new solo right on the spot. Okay, so we've got the map, we've got the three edges, but this is where things get really, really cool. This is where the map shows us exactly where growth is supposed to happen, and it brings us to maybe the most powerful idea in the whole thing: finding your sweet spots. So here's the big aha moment. The key idea is something called sweet spots. These are just the midpoints on each of those three edges we just talked about. It's the exact point where the two sides balance, where theory meets practice, where your habits meet your reflections. And according to this framework, that point of integration, well, that's where the magic happens. That's where brand new capabilities are actually born. So you can see here, in a perfectly balanced state, your development is just humming along right at that sweet spot. Your conceptual ideas are totally in sync with your real-world experience, and that creates this powerful engine for real insight. But, of course, that's not how it usually works, is it? We rarely develop that evenly. This slide shows what the framework calls drift. This is what happens when you overdevelop one side and neglect the other. For example, you become the classic armchair expert. You've got tons of conceptual knowledge, but almost zero real-world experience to back it up. You've drifted way off-center, far away from that sweet spot where the real growth happens. And this brings us right back to that feeling we started with. That gap, that distance between where you are and where the sweet spot is. That is the technical reason for that frustrating feeling of being stuck. The whole point of MARG is to make that gap visible so you can finally see what needs to change. So now that we can see the problem, what do we do about it? How do we actually fix it? Let's move into the final part and see how this map becomes a practical engine for growth. So how do you actually use this thing? Well, the practice is a pretty simple loop. First, you map your bag, which is just a fun way of saying you take an honest inventory of where you stand on all 6 of those areas. Second, you deliberately focus your effort right on those sweet spots to start closing the gaps you just identified. And third, you track your progress over time. And this is absolutely crucial. Notice how progress is measured here. It is not about just collecting more random facts and skills. Real development in this model is measured by the increasing sophistication of what you can do at those sweet spots. It's about getting better at integrating, not just accumulating. Now, what I find really refreshing about this is how direct it is. MARG isn't presented as some kind of philosophy you have to believe in. It's positioned as a technical, performance-based tool. Basically, the message is, it should either work for you or you should throw it out. No dogma, just results. In fact, it gives you a crystal clear report card for itself. Does it help you learn faster? Yes or no? Does working at the sweet spots actually produce new skills? Yes or no? If the answers are yes, it works. If not, it fails. And that level of clarity, that willingness to be proven wrong, is pretty rare. And frankly, gives the whole thing a lot of credibility. All right, let's bring it all home with a quick summary. So, what is MARG? It's a dynamic map of what you can actually do. What's the big idea? That real growth happens at those sweet spots where different parts of you come together. What problem does it solve? It finally gives a name and a shape to that feeling of being stuck by making your drift visible. And what's the practice? Simple. Map where you are, work on your sweet spots, and track your progress. And we're left with this final, powerful question. Look, whether you use a map like this or not, your mind is already developing, changing, and adapting every single day. The question MARG is really asking is just this. Isn't it time to make that process visible and maybe, just maybe, take the wheel?